Somewhere in the Pacific Ocean right now, a ship is moving in silence. No commercial radar picks it up. No shipping app tracks it. Its route changes without notice. Its schedule is classified, and the crew is forbidden from telling anyone where they've been. Armed guards patrol the deck around the clock, and inside its reinforced cargo hold sits enough weapons-grade plutonium to build several nuclear warheads. Nobody is talking about this ship. Most people don't even know it exists. This is the Pacific Nuclear Transport Fleet, and it has been quietly ferrying the world's most dangerous material across open ocean for over 40 years. To understand how we got here, you have to go back to the 1970s. Japan was rebuilding its energy infrastructure after the oil crisis, and nuclear power was the answer. Reactors were going up across the country, but nuclear reactors produce spent fuel, and spent fuel contains plutonium, and Japan had no domestic facility to reprocess it, so they sent it to Europe, specifically to France and the United Kingdom, where reprocessing plants could extract usable plutonium oxide from the waste. That left one problem. Once the plutonium was refined, someone had to bring it back. Pacific Nuclear Transport Limited, known as PNTL, was the answer. Founded in 1971 as a joint venture between British Nuclear Fuels and Japan's nuclear industry, the company built a small fleet of purpose-designed vessels for one job and one job only: transporting nuclear cargo across the world's oceans. The ships were purpose-built from the keel up, double-hulled, designed to survive collision and flooding without breaching the cargo containers inside. Their holds were packed with specially certified flasks, each one engineered to withstand temperatures up to 800 degrees Celsius and pressures that would crush a standard container flat. By the mid-1980s, the fleet was making regular runs. Radioactive material loaded at Cherbourg in France or Barrow in England, bound for the port of Takahama or Tokai in Japan. Distance covered, roughly 23,000 kilometers. Time at sea, 6 to 8 weeks. Cargo manifest, classified. Most of the world had no idea any of this was happening. That changed in 1992 when a ship called the Akatsuki Maru left Cherbourg carrying approximately 1.7 metric tons of plutonium. That is not a small number. That amount of material is, depending on who you ask and how it is processed, enough for somewhere between 50 and 200 nuclear weapons. It was the largest single shipment of separated plutonium ever attempted by sea. The moment the departure became public, the reaction was immediate and global. Greenpeace dispatched vessels to intercept the ship in open water. 14 countries along the planned route formally objected and refused to allow the Akatsuki Maru to pass through their territorial waters: South Africa, Argentina, Chile, Indonesia. One after another, ports slammed shut. The ship was forced to detour south, skirting below the Cape of Good Hope, adding thousands of kilometers to the journey. A French nuclear watchdog estimated that if the ship went down in deep ocean, the environmental contamination would be effectively impossible to remediate. The plutonium would remain hazardous for hundreds of thousands of years. The ocean currents alone would distribute it across half the Pacific within decades. The ship made it to Japan in January 1993 after 110 days at sea. But the Akatsuki Maru had cracked open something that the nuclear industry had hoped to keep sealed. The public now knew these voyages existed, and they were not happy about it. What followed was years of escalating tension between the nuclear industry, environmental groups, and the governments caught in between. PNTL adapted. Routes became more secretive. Departure schedules stopped being published. The company began using decoy itineraries and changed course mid-voyage based on real-time intelligence about protest vessels. Armed escorts were added. Ships traveled faster. Communication with shore was limited to prevent interception. And yet the voyages continued. Quietly, regularly. The demand for spent fuel reprocessing had not gone away, and Japan's nuclear energy program was not scaling down. Between 1993 and 2011, the fleet completed dozens of additional voyages, carrying mixed oxide fuel, known as MOX, back to Japan from European reprocessing plants. Each one carried enough radioactive material to render large areas uninhabitable if something went catastrophically wrong. Each one crossed some of the most remote and unforgiving water on the planet. Then in March 2011, the Fukushima Daiichi disaster changed everything. Japan shut down virtually all of its nuclear reactors following the meltdown. The pipeline of spent fuel headed to Europe dried up almost overnight. The reprocessing contracts slowed. The voyages became rarer. PNTL's fleet, once among the busiest nuclear transport operations in the world, went quiet. But the story didn't end there. It just moved out of the headlines. The spent fuel from Japan's pre-Fukushima reactors still existed. The plutonium that had already been reprocessed still existed. International agreements still required it to be returned. And so, in the years after Fukushima, the voyages resumed, slower and less frequent, but they resumed. There is also a broader reality that the Fukushima slowdown revealed. Japan is not the only country in this business. France, the United Kingdom, Russia, and several other nations operate their own nuclear transport logistics. The PNTL fleet is simply the most documented. The others are harder to track and, in some cases, virtually invisible to public scrutiny. There are right now, by various estimates, tens of thousands of tons of spent nuclear fuel sitting in storage around the world with no permanent disposal solution. It has to go somewhere, eventually. And when it moves by sea. The fleet that carries it travels in silence, which is exactly how the industry prefers it. What makes this story genuinely unsettling is not the danger itself. Nuclear transport has a surprisingly strong safety record. No PNTL vessel has ever lost its cargo to accident or attack. The engineering behind these ships is extraordinary. What makes it unsettling is the secrecy. Decisions about what gets moved, when it gets moved, and which ocean it crosses are made by a handful of corporations and government agencies with almost no public oversight. The routes are secret for legitimate security reasons, but the secrecy also means there is almost no public accountability for what happens when something goes wrong. And the cargo doesn't stop being dangerous just because the ship is well built. A severe enough collision, a catastrophic fire, an act of deliberate sabotage, any of these could create a radiological event in open water with consequences that no Coast Guard in the world is equipped to manage. These ships will keep sailing. The material will keep moving. The routes will stay classified. The schedules will stay secret, and most people standing on a beach somewhere in the Pacific will never know that somewhere just over the horizon, the world's most dangerous cargo is passing silently by. If you want to know more about the hidden infrastructure keeping the nuclear world running, the next video covers exactly that. Watch it now.